Hello, and thank you for checking out Spring Branch Community Church online. Whether you are a member here but you're unable to be in person for some reason, or maybe you're checking out churches and just wanted to see what we're about, we are glad that you are watching us online. As you listen, do me a favor, go into the description of this video and click on the link for our Connect card. That's a way for us to be able to know how we can connect with you and help you on your spiritual journey. I hope the following message is helpful for you and applicable to your life. Go ahead and get your Bible if you have one and turn to 1 Samuel 23. If you don't have a Bible with you, you can pull up an app, or we'll also put the words up on the screen. But while you're doing that, while you're taking the offering and turning in your Bibles to 1 Samuel 23, I just want to show you something real quick. In my hand right here is one of my most prized possessions in our family. Now, this is just a simple 3 of 5 card, so it's not worth anything in and of itself, the paper itself. But what is written on here is it's invaluable. This is the recipe for my wife's chocolate chip cookies. And Anna Schatz makes the best chocolate chip cookies on the planet. She's the GOAT. And you should know this is the only copy of this recipe that we have, which I should take a picture or something. I'll do that afterwards. Should make sure I take care of that. But something else that you should know about my wife's cookies is that she's the only one that makes them, because she's the only one that can make them correctly. I have tried on several occasions to do this, and the last time, it was maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It's been a little while since I've tried. And they just did not turn out okay. I followed the ingredients, I put everything in, but they turned out like a yellowish, brownish color. It was kind of a weird, I don't know how I did this. I didn't put anything yellow in it. I guess, egg yolks or something like that. But the texture was wrong, just something wasn't quite right. I think what might have happened is, you know how bakers, you're supposed to put the dry ingredients in and then the wet ingredients separate. I think I might have mixed up what was wet and dry and put them in or something like that. Or I think what I might have done is I might have melted the butter instead of like warming the butter. I guess that's a big deal for some reason. But for whatever reason, they didn't turn out the way that I wanted them to. And so Anna is the only one that makes them, and she makes them very well. Now, I learned a valuable lesson that day that I have kept with me that doesn't just apply to cookies. What you do is important, but the way that you do it is just as important. Let me say that again. But what you do is very important, but the way that you go about it is also equally important. And that actually reminds me of a principle that we're going to learn today from the story of David. I think we have a slide that shows it because it's a bit of a mouthful. And here's the lesson that I want you to learn today. It is never right to do wrong to do right. It is only right to do right to do right. That's a mouthful. Let me say it again. It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. You see, the end does not justify the means. What you do is important, but the way that you go about it is equally as important. Otherwise, you may not come out with the cookies that you wanted. Okay? Now, all of us realize this on a daily basis, because on a daily, sometimes on a weekly basis at least, we all face different ethical dilemmas. Some of you are in school. And if school is the same as it was when I was a kid, you deal with bullies. And so the right thing to do is obvious. You need to take care of the bully. However, there's a right way and a wrong way to go about that. Many of you serve as service members. You serve as Navy or in different parts of the military. And your operative is very clear. You got to take out the bad guys, protect the good guys. But there's a right way to go about that, isn't there? All of us have family disputes. We have family issues with our immediate family, with our extended family. And you know the right thing to do is to set boundaries and to lay out ground rules. But there's a right way to go about that, so that you can maintain relationships. In parenting, we all know that we need to raise our kids in a good way, and you need to make sure that we correct them and that we redirect them, but there's a right way and a wrong way to go about that. In fact, some of you faced an ethical dilemma this morning. You knew that coming to church was the right thing. You knew that being here on time was the right thing. Is speeding the right way to do that? Can I break the law? I don't know. I'm not a priest. You gotta kick that up to somebody else. But this is a principle that we all need to know today. It's never right to do wrong to do right. It is only right to do right to do right. And so that's where we're going to take it in the story today. Here's a picture of, I think I have a picture of David and Saul. So we've been studying the life of David. And David is basically, he is a character who it's a rags to riches story. David is a nobody. Nobody knows him. He's not wealthy. He's not an influential person. But somehow he rises to become king. And in the ancient world, this is very surprising, because in the ancient world, it's not like this democracy where, a poor cotton farmer can become a president. I mean, if you become a king or if you become a queen, it's because your family is influential, they're wealthy. I mean, there's a clear path. It's handed to you. And David is the exception in that he had to go through hardships and struggles, and he had to face ethical dilemma after ethical dilemma. And these issues that he went through, they shaped his character. They shaped his heart. They shaped him into the kind of person. He wasn't handed the kingship. He was shaped by these ethical dilemmas and the way he responded to become the kind of person that could be a king. So that's David, the other person that we're going to see in this story. 1 Samuel is basically a comparison of different characters. Okay, the other person we see in this story is Saul. Saul is the first king of Israel, and he's not a great king. He's insecure, he's inept, he's unethical. David enters, and he's young, and he's bold, he's a natural leader. And so, unfortunately, Saul spends the last few years of his reign trying his hardest, distracted, not doing what he needs to be doing as a king. He's completely distracted from that because he's trying to take out David, because it appears that David is going to be his successor. And the kingship is not going to stay within his family. And so that brings us to chapter 23, and follow along with me in verses 14 and 15. And David remained in the strongholds in the wilderness, in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God did not give him into his hand. David saw that Saul had come out to seek his life. So David was in the wilderness of Ziph at Horesh. So David now is spending his time traveling from city to city. I brought a map along with me, and you're not able to actually see the words in there, so that doesn't matter. What I want you to see is just this maze that he's going through. It's not like David ran to Chesapeake and back, okay? He doesn't have a car. There's no Amtrak to board. I mean, just look at this. This is no small endeavor. David is traveling all over the place trying to avoid Saul, and Saul is spending his time as king, his last few years, chasing David down through all these cities and different routes. Now, David's a natural leader. He must be a charismatic guy because he's got a few hundred men following with him. But Saul is the king. He's got a few thousand guys. He is using his army to track down this one guy and take him out and eliminate him. Let's pick it up in chapter 24, verses 1 through 2. Saul was told, "Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi." And then Saul took 3,000 chosen men, 3,000 to chase this guy down, out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men in the front of the wild goats' rock. Just out of interest here, check out that word En-Gedi that's mentioned. En-Gedi literally means the spring of the wild goats. In Hebrew, the word En means a spring, and then Gedi means goat. You ever watch those National Geographic videos? You got these mountain goats, they're just clicking up this mountain like it's nothing. So this is that area. Here's a picture of that. It's not far from the Dead Sea. It's a picture of the area. And what has happened in this place is that there's all these high and rocky hills. And over the centuries, the dirt has eroded around the foundation rocks. And so you have these natural caves. You have these natural fortresses. It's a good place to play hide and seek, basically. Here's another picture. I would have loved to play hide and seek. It's beautiful. And so it's a great place for David to go to if he's hiding from this army of people. He can position a person to just kind of look and survey the land. And if he sees an army coming, all you got to do is skip and hop. If you're nimble, if you're athletic, you can get away pretty easy. I can tell that might not be the case for many of us. But if you're quick and if you're nimble, you're able to jump out of the way and just kind of jump into another cave and avoid. So this is a great place for David to be in order to avoid Saul. But look at verse 3. And this is where the story gets a little interesting. Verse 3. And he came to the sheepfolds by the way, where there was a cave. And Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. So Saul is traveling. They come to the En-Gedi wilderness, and Saul has to use the restroom. There's no porta-johns, no porta-potties. This is just out in the middle of the wilderness. And so he comes up to a cave that looks like a good spot for him to do this. Everything's safe, everything's quiet. He has some men, he wants some privacy, so he asks his men to stay at the outside of the cave, and he walks into the cave alone. Little does he know that David and a few of his men, I mean not all hundreds of them, but a few of his men are in the back of that cave. And now some of you have, we talked about hide and seek. Some of you have done this where you go into a dark room to hide, and if you're looking into the darkness, you can't see who's in there, right? It's just darkness. But if you're in the back of a cave or a dark room and you're looking into the light, you can see a silhouette. And so David and his men, they can tell it's Saul. David has spent time with Saul. He can tell by the gait and by the way he's walking, that silhouette is Saul. Saul is coming into the cave. And little does he know that David and his men are inside that very cave. And there's a detail here in the story that you need to know. I don't mean to be crude, but it's good for you to understand what's happening. It's number 2. Hey, we've all done it. We've all done it, hopefully every day, so nothing to be embarrassed about. So Saul, he has to go in here, And I don't know but you don't do this with a sword. Like, you can't take weapons when you're doing this kind of thing. And so he goes in there. He has to leave his sword or whatever with his men. He leaves them out. He wants some privacy. He goes in there. He drapes his robe over a rock or something. And again, I'm not trying to be crude, but just think about what has to happen. I mean, in this ancient world, you have these robes and stuff. He has to hold these things up. And the point that I'm trying to make is he is as exposed as he could possibly be. This is the most vulnerable position that Saul could possibly be in, alone, without a weapon, and crouched over, unable to defend himself, unable to know what's happening. This is the most vulnerable he could possibly be. Okay? I love the Bible. There's some cool stories in here, right? So look at that. I love getting to preach this stuff. So look at verse number 4 again. And the men of David said to him, dude, sorry, that's not in the Hebrew. He said, hey, this is the day which the Lord said to you, behold, I give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you. They're like, God has orchestrated this event, David, for you right now. It is obvious that God has, what are the chances that he comes to this cave and he's doing this in the cave? I mean, this has got to be a God thing, right? But for David, he faces the most ethical dilemma of his entire life right here in this moment. Now, he knows the right thing to do. Everybody knows the right thing to do. Saul needs to be eliminated as king, and David needs to become the next king. That is, without any argument, that is the right thing that has to happen. Saul knows it. He's already been told that his days are numbered and that he's not fit to be king. So he knows it. That's the right thing. David knows it. David's already been coronated or anointed as king. It's one of those things where he was anointed and then, it took a while for him to become king. So he knows he's next in line. All of David's men knows it. All of Saul's men know it because he's kind of lost it. I mean, they've kind of lost all respect and vouch for this guy. They know that David's going to be the next king. So everybody knows this is the right thing to do, but David has to pause and say, is this the right way for this to happen? This is the right thing. Is this the right way? And here's the ethical dilemma he's going through. It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. Say that with me if you can. Ready? It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. You see, knowing the right thing to do, that's only half the battle. Knowing the right way to go about it. Because what you do is important, but the way that you do it is equally important. David would say Saul has to be stopped. Is this the way to do it? By murdering him in this cave? Is this the way to go about it? I need to be defended, but is this the right way for me to do that? The nation needs to be done with this king. The nation needs to elect me as its next king, but is this the right process? Is this the right way for this circle of events to go? It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. I want you to notice something else in verse number 24. Skip ahead to where the men are saying, this is the day that the Lord said, behold, I give your enemy, look at this, into your hands. That's an important phrase because that word hand or that phrase of something being in your hand is used 9 different times just in this chapter, in chapter 24. There's something interesting about a decision being in your hands. According to David's men, the decision is in David's hands. And have you ever noticed if a decision is in someone else's hands, it's a lot easier to make? Like, y'all's problems are way easier than my problems, right? I can give you advice. When a decision is in somebody else's hands, it's easy. I was a great parent before I had kids, right? I knew how to do budgeting until I became a grown-up, and it becomes a little more difficult. I don't want to give up my cable, right? But I thought being a boss was really easy until I had all these people reporting to me. And many of you can identify with this. Many of you were in the military service or are in the military service, and you probably sat through classes in the academy where you learned about just war theory and the history of war. And you might have sat through those classes, reading those books, thinking, I know the right thing, and that commander should have done this and should have done that, and I would have done this in this situation. But when you're the one in the submarine holding the controls, when the decision's in your hand, doesn't it feel heavier? You know what I'm talking about? Decisions that are in your hand feel heavier. And here's the dark side of when a decision is in your hand. It's easy to justify doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Oh, I feel like the end justifies the means. Hey, I'm the one with all the information, so, my situation is unique. I hear what you're saying. My situation is unique. I don't think the rules apply to me in this situation. When you are in the seat of power, you can become intoxicated with that power. And intoxicated people don't make the best decisions, do they? Look at the next phrase that he uses. The decision's in your hands. And in verse 4 it says, you shall do to him as it seems, or as it shall seem good to you. Whatever seems good to you, David, is what you should do. Well, I'll tell you what seems good. Let's do this fast. That sounds good. But the fast way is not always the ethical way. Let's do this clean. That's what seems good. But the clean way is not the ethical way. I want to come out of this cave looking good. But you know what? Coming out looking good, that's not always the ethical way. It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. And when you do the right thing the right way, you don't always come out on top. It does not always benefit you. But if you're a follower of Christ, that's not the end goal, is it? The end does not justify the means. We can't sit around here and say, oh, everybody that makes an omelet has to break a few eggs. Ha ha. No, it doesn't work that way when you follow Christ. It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. Look at verse number 24. Spend a lot of time in this verse. Then David arose, again, with his dagger in hand, right? It's in his hand, and it's getting heavy, this decision. And stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Hey, when I say passive, you say aggressive. Passive. Passive. I just thought that would be fun. He's not actually being passive aggressive. He's not. I didn't know if you guys would do it. He's not actually being passive aggressive. He's actually being quite intentional here. He's doing something. I'm going to show you what he's doing here. Saul has apparently taken off his robe because of what, we talked about what he's doing here. So he took off his robe. Doesn't want to get that dirty. He puts that off on the side. And so David sneaks up with his dagger in hand, and he turns, and he goes to the robe. He could have taken off Saul's head. Saul recognizes this later, but instead he goes to the robe, and he cuts off a corner of the robe instead. And look at verse number 5 and 6. And afterwards, David's heart struck him because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And he went back to his men. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him. This is my hand we're talking about, seeing that he is the Lord's anointed. I just want to take a pause right here. Some of you came here with your family. Some of you came here with friends. If you're going out to lunch or going home to eat lunch together, I would encourage you just to bat around. Just think about David's conscience here and how amazing his conscience is cutting him for even something that I see as a small detail. I encourage you as a family, hey, where does your conscience come from? And can you wear down your conscience? And can you build up your conscience and have a more godly conscience? Maybe some of you are watching online. Someone sent you a video clip. Hey, you should watch my pastor talking about this thing. And if you're watching online or if you're in the room and you're not a Christian, maybe you subscribe to a different religion. Maybe you consider yourself spiritual but not religious. You're not sure if the Christian God is the true God. I encourage you just to bat around with the friend that invited you or sent you this clip and just ask, where does the conscience come from? How do we know what is right and wrong? Is there an absolute right and absolute wrong? And where does our conscience come? Why do we feel guilty when we do wrong? And who's to say what's wrong? I just think this would be an interesting conversation, no matter what your religion is, and one that I would love to have with you if you don't have someone in this room that can have that with you. We'll take the timeout off. Let's go to verse number 7 and pick it up in our story. Saul rose up and left the cave and went on his way, apparently unaware of any of this happening, right? Afterward, David also rose, and he comes out of the cave with him, after he gets a little ways up, of course. And he called after Saul, my lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and paid homage. I'm just amazed at how respectful he is to this guy that's trying to hunt him down. And David said to Saul, verse 9, why do you listen to the men who say, behold, David seeks your harm? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord gave you into my hand. Your life was in my hand in the cave. And some told me to kill you, but I spared you. And I said, I will not put out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. You see my father, that's a sign of respect, calling the king his father. See the corner of your robe in my hand, for by the fact that I cut off the corner of your robe and not your head, you may know and see, look at this, that there is no wrong. It would have been so easy to say I did the right thing the wrong way, but it was for the right reasons. It would be so easy. But David said, look, in this sentence, when this is a story, when you tell the story later, there will be no wrong in my hands. It's never right to do wrong to do right. Never. It's only right to do right to do right. And he said, there's no wrong in my hand. Wouldn't it be great if we could look back on our life and say that, hey, things didn't work out the way I wanted them to, but there's no wrong in my hand. That's the kind of life that we believers need to live. No wrong. It's only right to do right to do right. David says, look, my men told me to end this chase. They told me I need to defend myself. They told me that you are not fit to be king. They told me that you need to be taken out. And you know what? They're right. But what happened in this cave, that's not the right way. That's not the right way to do it. Even if it doesn't benefit me, that's not the right way to do it. It's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. Verse 17. So Saul said to David, you are more righteous than I. For you have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil. And you have declared this day how you have dealt well with me, that you did not kill me when the Lord put me into your hand. When the decision was in your hand, you did it the right way. And I want you to note, I'm going to switch to the NIV for verse 19 and 20. When a man finds his enemy, does he let him get away unharmed? It's a rhetorical question. Of course not. May the Lord reward you well, not just for what you did, but look at this, look at this, but for the way. The way that you did it is what God's going to reward you for. Isn't that amazing? The end does not justify the means. All is not fair in love and war. That's not how things work. Not in the kingdom of God. That's not how things work. That might be how the world does it. That's not how we do it. It's only right to do right to do right. Now, again, David is holding a corner of the robe, and there's a detail that you need to know from a few chapters before. You see, we're going through the book of 1 Samuel very slowly, like 1 or 2 chapters every week, and so you may not pick up on these themes. But if you had picked up 1 Samuel and just read it through, it's not terribly long, if you had just read it through, this would have instantly brought your mind back to a story that happened just a few chapters ago with a robe. So I'm going to take you back to there. Just look at the screen here and go back with me to chapter 15, where we see another torn robe. In chapter 15, verse 26, Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned to go away, Saul seized the skirt of his robe, and what's the next word? It tore. You see, back in chapter 15, Saul faced an ethical dilemma. And here's what he did. He was told that he needed to annihilate this people group, this nation known as the Amalekites. I don't have time to get into it. The Amalekites were exceedingly wicked. They had killed numerous Israelites. I mean, they were the enemies of God. They were the enemies of Israel, and his job was to annihilate the Amalekites. Don't even leave the animals alive. The memory of this people group needs to be annihilated, God said. And so here's what Saul does. He does the right thing. He went into battle. He attacked, they won the battle, and they brought the king of the Amalekites up before King Saul. And he let him live. He let him live. And then they brought the animals to him. Now, he was supposed to annihilate the animals, but Saul said, I have a better idea. I think this is the right thing to do. Let's have a big celebration. Let's have a big worship. Let's use these animals as burnt sacrifices and cause a feast. And let's celebrate what God has done. It's the right thing to do. It's not the right way. That's not what God said. It seems like the right thing to do, but that was the wrong way. And because of that, Samuel the prophet said, you are no longer fit to be king. And in his desperation, Samuel begins to walk away. In his desperation, Saul reaches out and grabs a corner of the robe. And look at verse 28. And Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better. We looked at that word a couple weeks ago. Who's holding the robe now in chapter 24? Who's holding it? David. David's better. He's not better qualified. He's not better skilled. He's not better looking or anything. He's better ethically. And God needed an ethical leader, a leader over Israel who wasn't going to do the right thing the wrong way. That's why David's better. And now he is the one holding the corner of the robe. You see what the author's telling us? Saul did the right thing the wrong way. It's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. This story reminds me of a friend, and I'll close with this. I was talking about this with a friend of mine, and she gave me permission to share a hard story of hers. So she works for a large organization, and unfortunately, she was sexually assaulted by her superior, by her boss. Now, in dealing with this and talking with her husband about it and trying to figure out what they should do, the right thing to do was obvious. She needed to seek justice. This guy needed to be fired. It was obvious the right thing to do. But what she wrestled with for a long time was, what's the right way to go about this? And as I was talking to her about this, a few months after it happened, she said, there were basically two paths in front of me. One path is that I could have gone to the media and raised this thing. This is, if I told you the organization, it's national, it's a big deal, global actually, so you would know it. I could have gone to the media, I could have hired a lawyer, I could have just blown up the company, and I would have won. She said that was one way to do it. She said another way that was in front of me was I could work within the system. I could stay at the company. I could move up the chain and report the way that I needed to, and I could try to change the culture of the organization itself. These were the two paths in front of me, and she chose the second path. Now, if anybody in here, anybody watching online goes through something like this may not be what you need to do, but this was her decision, and here's why. She said, if I had taken option number one, if I had hired a lawyer and just gone after all the money I could and just blown the company up, she said, this is what would have happened. He would have been fired. This is her email to me. I wanted her to word it a certain way. He would have been fired, and I would be sitting on a beach sipping Mai Tais with millions in the bank. But I also would have been out of a job that I enjoy. I would be blacklisted in the industry, and the system, she puts in quotes, would only build in more controls to disempower victims in the moment that they speak up. So she chose option number two. Now, option number two did not work entirely in her favor. For 16 months, that guy remained her boss. For 16 months, her life was an open investigation. They were poking and prodding into her emails and meetings and her work schedule. It was a gruesome investigation for 16 months. But at the end of that time, he was fired. And now my friend is still at the company, and she has been elevated to the point where she is able to put practices into place to protect victims and to whistleblow when these kind of things happen. And I'm also very proud to say that she was recently made partner at her organization. So whenever I saw her, howdy, partner. I was really proud of her. Hey, it didn't work. It would have been a lot easier. But she decided, in my case, this is the right thing to do, and this is the right way to do it. It's because she realized, like David, that it's never right to do wrong to do right. It's only right to do right to do right. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope that video was helpful for you, and I also hope that you can come and visit us in person sometime. Lastly, I want to let you know about an upcoming event at our church. It is our annual Hoedown. That occurs on October 15th, and we're going to have plenty of food. There's going to be carnival games, stuff for the kids, stuff for the entire family. I would love for you to be our guest at that event. If you go into the description, there should be a link that shows you more about that Hoedown event. And lastly, as we like to say around here, you are not dismissed, but you are sent. Thank you for watching.